Well, getting back to COVID normal is going to be a slow process dictated solely by the discussions today, as you've mentioned. It's a matter for looking at the medical evidence and deciding through the authorities under the guise of the Commissioner, the Premier and Professor Spurrier. So it's a well-honed process, and hopefully for all of us it's just a careful and planned stepping out back to what we in Australia now consider fairly normal.
Yeah, looking at what has happened in South Australia, it's really good news, you'd have to say. No second wave. When people have seen, what is your experience over the last couple of days? When people have seen that it was nowhere near the level of which was predicted in the early stages of this cluster at Parafield, did you have a problem in recent days with a lack of compliance?
No, not that is evident at all. In fact, in the early stages of compliance at the lockdown, it was astonishing, and it's testament to the South Australian community. But the same has been shown across Australia as well. We're very aware of the dangers of the virus, and so in South Australia, it was a fantastic response. As things sort of relax, people get a little bit confused about which has been freed up and which hasn't. We, from a policing perspective, just try to educate and talk our way through. We can't in any way arrest or force our way, force compliance. This is everyone just working together. So, look, we've been very pleased. Everyone's doing the right thing as best they can.
So you can't force compliance,
we're happy with that.
Is that correct? So these rules that were in place, for example, mask wearing, no exercise outside the home, only going out for emergency supplies. Were police just there from a policing perspective to remind people of the rules? You didn't make any arrests or issue fines?
Oh, so I'll just clarify that. There is certainly a compliance element that brings with it penalty if there's not compliance, but what I'm saying is the majority of success is through licence of the community, where they just help. We certainly are not running around with a big stick in this state to try and make people do things, but we certainly take action if it's evident that people are blatantly misbehaving.
Where are you up to with your investigation in terms of the central lie that the Premier put a spotlight on?
So as you'd be aware, there's a task force that I'm in charge of detectives. It's now more than 20 officers. We expect that we'll have to do some sort of clarity by the end of the week, perhaps even completion of the investigation. It's very rapidly unfolding. I've taken the unusual step of briefing the media to a limited degree during the investigation because the interest here is huge, as you'd expect. So to date, we've been able to look at some hard drives from computers, mobile phones, and some laptops that is relevant to our investigation. So that actually will help us with our lines of inquiry. The goal is that in a very short time we will know whether there's a case to be made. If there's any evidence at all that a charge can be substantiated in court.
Are you looking at one person or multiple people?
At the minute, the focus is one person, but that doesn't mean others are or are not going to be spoken to. But it's very important we just get this first focus on the main individual and see where that lands. I make no presumption about any offences actually happening or anything happening in the way of an arrest or not. It's until there's a full assessment of the evidence, and then we'll see where we land. It's very important that we do this fairly. There's a lot of emotion and there's a lot of rumour and innuendo, I suppose, floating around. We have to deal with the facts, and we'll be very fair, as we must be. So we'll be clinical, and I expect that by the end of the week we'll have the answer.
And just quickly, what are you looking for on those hard drives?
So without going into the nitty-gritty of what the investigators are actually looking for, it's to see whether there's any evidence there that can assist our lines of inquiry, such as who was at Peppers, who wasn't, who said they were but weren't, etc. It may be nothing. It may be nearly 480 hours for no purpose from an investigation sense. But the great outcome from is that the information from the CCTV is also passed over to contact tracing, which is very important, so health can actually do their vital role.